Thank you so much. I'm really happy to proceed with my speech right after the panel on women entrepreneurs. I'm myself a woman and social entrepreneur, actually, and as was mentioned, our initiative has started in 2016 as a student initiative and now has grown as a center for distance learning. I'm going to start by asking you a question. How many of you have used e-learning before? When I say before, it means before pandemic. Please raise your hand. Okay, I see 4, 5 hands raised. How many of you have used it during pandemic? I see quite similar hands with a slight increase. How many of you are planning to use it after pandemic and in the future? I see much more hands now. This actually gives a little bit of perspective. What's the level now and what was the level before? But in this whole speech, I'll give you a lot of more information, both statistically and as facts too. So I'm going to talk about us as an organization, what is the Kosovo teachers' readiness to transition to online learning, what we should work on to set the sector off, and last but not least, I'll tell you how you can contact with us. Please, if you can scan this, I'm gonna make you engage in this presentation as well. Please scan this QR code and let's answer the question together. With this, we want to learn more about the experiences that you actually just mentioned on e-learning, and our goal is to use this information in the future for our work. So if you can do so, I would be really happy, and I'll thank you. The first question is just your name and some demographics, and you can describe the role you played in the education system, and whether you were familiar with e-learning before, and if you believe that many people had access, because we really want to see the insights of each one of you, though I don't see many of you in the stage, but still it's all right because the sector is still setting off. It's not a sector alive yet, which we plan to make it stronger in the future. I'll let you continue with the questions yourself, if you can, but I'll give you a bit of history and our story. We started back in 2015-16 as a student initiative, informal initiative to include digital solutions in the education system through student campaigns mainly. That was back in 2016, and then we had many opportunities to present our idea both locally and internationally. But that baby as a campaign growing the center, which is becoming a more serious center that will address the distance learning and will work in advancing. The mission of our center is to advance both e-teaching and e-learning through research, practice, and partnership. Right now, we're working with the partners that have come closer to us and that want to see the sector taking off real soon. I mentioned that we work with research as well, and I'm going to give just some of the facts that we have taken from our research, so just be mindful that all the data that I'm going to show, they're part of our center's research, and it's only our own data. From a project called Connected last year, we have come to a conclusion from the data from the field that 5% of the students from 12 municipalities that we targeted did not have access to online learning. This is data that we should keep in mind if we want to set the sector off in the future, as well as the teachers that did not conduct online learning during pandemic. The reason why I opened the speech by asking you whether you use it before, during pandemic, or after, is because we want to see how the attitude is going to change. Because having 4% of, or 25, from 250 respondents from vet schools, it means that there are around yeah, they're around 4% from the total 2,700 teachers who haven't been able to conduct online learning. Therefore, they lagged behind, their children lagged behind, their families were behind, and in the future, they're not going to have an easy way to cope with learning and education overall. But yeah, I mean, this is a vicious circle. The teachers complain all the time that they have students that they don't want to go to school, they want to stay home. And they have children who wish that they could do the work they do at school, they could do at home. They have children who do not have access to equipment. As we showed in the percentage, we had 5% of total children who did not have access to online learning because they did not have an asset. And then there are children who want to go to school, they hate online learning, and they don't like to stay home. So their teachers are confused, the whole system is confused, we are confused. And then the world, around the world, the education system are trying to grab what would be the better way to meet the diverse needs of students, and each individual student to have a learning environment which is a better fit for them. This is a question which is never going to end. Now, I'm sorry if my voice is too loud. I think my mic was really close, so thank you. But as a center, we want to see what is the profile of our learner and what is the profile of our teacher, because it differs from the context. Our learner profile is not the same, our online learner profile is not the same as an online learner profile of a developed country, of a country who has been in the field for many years. However, here I'm going to just show an example, because as a center we haven't developed an online learner profile yet. We always need an online teacher profile too. I'm going to show an example of our main partner, which is Michigan Virtual. They've been in the sector for around 30 years, and actually it all makes sense even for every other country that a successful online learner needs to be good in managing their time. So we have, as a teacher, as a sector, we need to ask ourselves some questions before we go on and bring about virtual learning, virtual school, and digital solutions. A student should be ready to have effective communication, use tools that can generate communication, such as correspondence with email and other platforms that are good for communication, have an independent study habit. So can the student study and complete assignment without having a real-time teacher or a synchronous discussion with their teacher? Of course, the student has to be self-motivated. Just keep in mind, this is the ideal profile. Not this maybe never happens, but this is what an ideal profile would look like. So we need to know whether the students have a desire to learn on their own pace, and they are motivated to fulfill assignments because of an educational goal, and whether they can focus on it or not. And then, of course, academic readiness, whether they're good at reading, writing, math, computer literacy, but not only reading and reading in terms of traditional reading. Importance here is also critical reading. And then last, but the most important in virtual online learner profile is the technologically prepared student. Are our students ready to use platforms, digital platforms, so our sector can take off as a whole? Again, I'm bringing you some other data from our research. And here we can see the teacher's readiness for transition to online or blended mode of teaching in the future. And then from our questions, whether they're prepared or how much they're prepared, we have more than 70% of people that we have to work with. We have 15% of them that are very prepared, so we're just moving them out of the cluster, but the others are the ones that have to be trained and have to maybe even get comfortable with e-learning in the future. Again, some other data. Some of the challenges of the overall number of respondents, why they don't per se like online learning or they're not ready to do so, are because they themselves or students lack equipment, and this is the largest percentage on the reason why. And then some of them, they don't feel ready because they feel that their students don't feel ready. So lack of attendance for them translates to lack of readiness of students to do online learning. And of course, then there are infrastructure barriers such as connectivity with internet. And the one that we really have to work on is not lack of knowledge on e-learning. And that's why the presentation in our project is also called Teaching Online at the Right Level, because the right level always advances to another level, and knowledge on e-learning tools will advance too. I'll just give you an anecdote here. So there's a quote that I found somewhere, but I couldn't find the author back when I went to Google, so I'm gonna quote something else. When Thomas Edison in 19th century invented film projector, he went to the school boards of New York, and he showed the projector, and he said that this tool will revolutionize the education sector, and he was really enthusiastic about that. But what did the boards say? They just told him that he's never gonna mess with their traditional learning system. So, but then it's been 2 more centuries, and now we still are facing a lot of challenges and barriers in such terms in education system, because, and this tells us how non-elastic education systems are in general. But again, this quote kind of gives an answer, because we have to break down brick and mortar. We have to break down walls so our sector breaks through. Yeah, and then to have a teaching online at the right level, we don't have in the equation only the teachers or students. We have a whole set of factors that implicate that. The holistic approach, of course, is always the right approach, ideally. But then in terms of context, distance education in Kosovo and then innovation in Kosovo was not the technology itself or a functionality of technology, but was just the transition from traditional to distance learning. And we have a lot to work, even in the context of having regulations set. So the first step that we can take is just have contextualize our setting based on the practices that we can get from the other countries in the region, if there are some, and then we can go even further on and have practice from leading countries and then just bring back to our context. So this sets the first factor that comes to play, the bylaws, regulations, and the door that opens the sector to grow. Second, of course, actually, even though I put it on like one after the other, I'm not saying that one should go after the other. They can also go parallel to each other. So as we work in the regulations, we can also work in the infrastructure system in terms of internet, equipment, digital catalogs. We heard from other panels that there is a lot. Kosovo is a good example for internet penetration. We have a large population, more than 90% of people who have access to internet, so that's a good thing. But then, is that internet enough for school, for virtual learning? So that's something we have to work, equip. I'm not saying just to cram schools with equipment and give children all the equipment they need, but have equipment ready for virtual learning when the virtual platforms are created. And then digital catalogs, because if children are qualified to get a digital subject for one academic year, they have to have a catalog in their school and go and check which subject they want from the catalog. So the digital catalog is very important. And maybe it's unknown for now, but very soon it's going to be something very applicable. And then at the same time, training. When I say training, it's of course important, so every teacher has training on online learning, but not every teacher has to know how to create virtual learning and how to instruct and design content, digital content. So we have to have, this maybe would go to the Faculty of Education, we have to have teachers coming from the University of Education who are prepared to design and instruct digital content for our public schools. And I'm talking for pre-university education, just to have this in mind. And last, again, it's not last, it can be parallel to others, develop platforms or virtual schools, or have the existing ones combined and modified, and have it ready for the sector to take off. This, in my opinion, is what we need so we can create an environment for our digital natives to study in the way they live at home. And I think this is the best because, as I showed here, they don't know if they want to stay home or they want to stay at school or they want to learn online or they want to learn in class. So let's just blend it. Maybe they love it better. And then their practices that blended with research, their fact that blended learning is much more effective than only traditional learning or only online learning. Blended learning gives the sense of being more engaged and kind of finding yourself, seeing where you find yourself better. When we have everything set, and we set the sector, and we have had this holistic approach, this is what we should expect. We should expect to have fast internet, reliable internet, 24/7 access in virtual learning. When I'm talking about virtual learning, I'm not really talking about synchronous learning, because that's also part of it, but I'm talking about modular classrooms that are created by instructional designers, put in the platform, put in the catalogs of the schools. Teachers can go, students can go and take the subject on their own time, on their own place, whenever they need. That's what digital catalogs are there, so we should expect every school to have a digital catalog so students can go and choose from them, and of course online presence. If I have a bit more time, I think I'm almost done though, but just to wrap up, I'm Antigona. I come from the Center for Distance Education. If you want to contact with us in the future, we'll be here for a long time, and we'll be one of the main actors to set up the sector in virtual learning. But in any case, you can email me, you can reach out through my phone, and we're open to cooperate with as many partners as possible. And again, I'm happy to be an entrepreneur and a women's social entrepreneur. Thank you so much.